Hey guys, before we get started, I do want to talk about my favorite way of reading right now, which is in my hoodie. It is literally the most comfortable, softest fabric. I did get it in the color pink, but they have a bunch of designs and cute little prints. This is like a blanket meets a hoodie, and I'm literally obsessed. It's so oversized and cozy, and you will be seeing me in this hoodie all fall. I will leave a code for you guys, and thank you so much, the hoodie, for sending this. I'm so excited for today's video because it's gonna be something I've never done on my channel. I've seen it all over YouTube. I am gonna be choosing my favorite booktubers books. So my favorite booktubers 5-star reads. I am gonna be choosing 3 different booktubers for this video and 3 different books. So I've checked their Goodreads and I've selected a 5-star read. So the first one I am going to start with is none other than Haley Pham. She is one of the first booktubers that I found on booktube when I started getting back into reading back in 2022, and I was instantly obsessed with her videos. I am still the type that goes back to her old reading vlogs in her old house, and I used to just love the corner with the orange chair, I think it was. I was just obsessed with her videos, and I still am. I literally get so excited when she posts. I feel like as she gets older, she starts recommending different genres and different types of books. Like her style of reading has definitely changed throughout the years, and I love to see that. I was kind of in between a few books with Haley. I first was going to select The Ministry of Time. I also thought of Red Rising, but then I thought, what book do I have in my physical TBR already that she's rated 5 stars? And honestly, I instantly was like, hold on, I've had this specific book in my monthly TBR for like 3 months also, and it is The Bodyguard. So we're gonna start this reading vlog with The Bodyguard. Haley raves about that book in literally every video that she talks about her 5-star read. So I actually did start it at the airport a few days ago on my Kindle, and I am about 22% in. I also have the physical copy. Let me go get that. So this is the physical copy, and if you've watched my monthly TBRs, you know what I'm talking about. This has been in like 2 or 3 of them already, and I keep saying I'm gonna get to it and I don't. So at the airport the other day, I was thinking about how I was gonna start this video, and The Bodyguard is on Kindle Unlimited, so perfect timing. So far, all I really know is this is about Hannah Brooks and Jack Stapleton. So Hannah Brooks is the actual bodyguard in this video, or in this book, and that's her job. She's a bodyguard. They have like a technical name for executive protection agent. She goes through like a heartbreak. Her mom just passed away, and she's just like this workaholic, and her boss is like, okay, you need to take a break. And she's like, no, like I want to keep working, and she wants him to send her out to some projects in another country. I don't remember if it's somewhere in Europe, but her ex-boyfriend also works there, and he actually gets that project. So she's like super frustrated, and the boss is finally like, okay, I'll give you a job, or I'll get you a job. When he finally does, once she has like her grieving days, he makes her the bodyguard of a Jack Stapleton, which is this famous guy, and she's like so opposed to it, but now she's like, well, whatever, like I'll just take it. So far I'm only 22% in, and really nothing crazy has happened. She's about to start acting like his girlfriend because Jack Stapleton's mom is sick. That's why he's back in, I think this is it in Texas? I think it's in Texas. So there's fake dating. So they're fake dating, and I guess eventually there's gonna be a romance unraveling here. But I have to say, like the first 5%, I was like, am I gonna like this book? But now it picked up a little bit and I am intrigued. I do think it's like very lighthearted. I don't know if this is like, is this YA? Because it does give me like a little younger vibes, like just the writing style. I could be wrong. And Emily Henry actually has a blurb on the front, which is pretty crazy. Imagine having Emily Henry's blurb on the front. We're gonna continue with this, and I will keep you guys updated. I know damn well editing Carla is going to regret this clip. So I just got out of the shower and my hair is wet, and it doesn't look great. I wanted to update I wanted to update you guys because I got further into the Bodyguard. Somewhere between last night and this morning, I read like 12% more and I fell in love with this. I don't know, this always happens to me. I always judge a book by its cover. And with romance books, I go in kind of nervous because, like, look at this cover. I feel like it doesn't look like you can take it that seriously. It's kind of like Emily Henry's books where their covers are like so playful and they look like it's just a cute little rom-com, but then you open up the dang book and you realize that it is a well thought out, serious story about real people. I mean, not really, but like realistic characters that go through real life things. So even though certain aspects kind of sound like they're a little maybe unrealistic, but for the most part it's like a normal life. And anyway, I read up to chapter 16. I took this with me, or I took my Kindle to the gym this morning and I was reading while I was on the treadmill. Things got serious. I think that Jack Stapleton is on that list of favorite book boyfriends now because they're not even really dating. They're fake dating at this point. But the things he does for her give me like small town boyfriend vibes. He's just so attentive and like he has no obligation to treat Hannah Brooks the way he's treating her, but he's still treating her that way. Things have gotten emotional in this book already and I don't want to say anything because I don't want to spoil anything. But basically, I'm understanding why this was rated 5 stars by Haley so far. I really love Catherine Senner's writing. I can't think of quotes right now. On my Kindle, I was annotating, so I'm gonna have to go back through my physical copy and annotate because the words that she uses and like the way she sets up these sentences, wow. I'm obsessed with her writing and I think it's so beautiful. This book also has certain, like I've chuckled a few times. I was literally on the treadmill this morning like grinning, smiling. Guys, I woke up at 3:30 a.m. so if I'm saying a whole lot of nothing, forgive me. I'm kind of flying through this book and it is a short one. This is only 320 something pages. So, oh wait, no, that's 302 pages. So I'm probably gonna finish this today, honestly, because I'm flying through it. I said earlier this book is so funny. Jack Stapleton has a stalker and that's the whole reason why Hannah has been contracted like to basically protect him. And apparently the stalker is a corgi breeder. So let me read you this line. It says, "What was going on? Who was shooting? Had the corgi breeder stalker found us? Gone ballistic?" I think I'm just tired, but that is so funny to me. I made it to the 60% mark. This book, sis, this book, I was honestly not expecting this, and I said this previously, but I was not expecting to like this book as much as I like it. I know Haley raved about it, and it has been in my TBR for the longest because I've seen it all over my Goodreads as well. I don't know if it's, I think it was just the cover that was like throwing me off. Lately, I think this has been happening to me where I've been reading a lot of the books that I have on my physical TBR that I've had for a while. Like I've honestly had this for almost a year in my physical TBR. And now that I'm finally getting around to it, I'm honestly in shock and so pleasantly surprised. I didn't expect Jack Stapleton to also be as sweet as he is. There's this scene where he's having a bad dream and Hannah is helping him, comforting him, and he's just so sweet and he's just such a sweet guy. Lately, I've been reading books so slowly. It's been taking me forever to finish a book, and just the simple fact that I kind of dedicated time to like sitting down and reading this book mostly yesterday and today, and I've gotten through 30% of it. That's a lot for me because lately my attention span is just not there, so that's saying a lot. Why is this book getting more and more emotionally intense right now? I really was not expecting this. Okay, I feel like I've done a fair job at raving about The Bodyguard ever since I picked it up. And I'm now, because I'm reading on my Kindle, but I'm now 78% into the book. And earlier I mentioned that I really like Catherine Senner's quotes in this book. Like, I like her style of writing. But now I'm also just as curious to read other Catherine Senner books to see if the style of writing is like similar. So for example, this is very ordinary in a way, but it makes you think. And I love when quotes or sentences make you like think a little. So it says, and then I wondered if having faith in yourself was just deciding you could do it, whatever it was, and then making yourself follow through. So I decided something right then. Every chance you take is a choice to decide who you are. I am annotating on my Kindle. I hadn't even, I did realize, I knew that Kindle had dark mode because I have dark mode on my Kobo. I never realized that I would prefer it. I'm gonna knock this out and I'll be right back with my final rating. It says, my brain felt like white noise, my throat felt like sand, my entire being positively vibrated with shame. The humiliation was total. There was no cell in my body that wasn't saturated with it. Why do I know that feeling? All right, I finally finished The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. Wow. I think this is like the perfect book for me, starting with the fact that it's only 302 pages. And in literally every reading vlog, I say how after the 350 mark, I get so bored in a book. So the fact that it's like short and sweet is perfect. This book kind of gave me like if Ashley Poston, Abby Jimenez, and Emily Henry all wrote a book together, this would be the book. Like I feel like that's the vibes that Catherine Center gave me, because I feel like it gives me that rom-com-y but serious romance element that Abby Jimenez gives, and also Emily Henry with like the really beautiful quotes. And then Ashley Poston also, I really enjoyed this book. The romance between Jack and Hannah was just so wholesome and like sweet. It wasn't too pushy or like too rushed. It was like very natural. I love how there was no spice in this book either, really. Like there was one scene where like it almost went there but it didn't. I really enjoyed that because I really don't care for spice anymore, or I honestly never did. I feel like I've always skimmed through like the spice scenes in a book. I feel like this is a great read, and I 100% understand why Haley and so many people honestly on Goodreads have rated this 5 stars. I ended up rating this 4.5 stars. The only reason I didn't rate it 5 stars was because it just didn't give me like that 5-star feel where you're like it just didn't give me that 5-star feel, but it was an amazing read nonetheless. 4.5 is still like right there. I didn't expect to enjoy this book as much as I did, and I think actually the reason why I'm not giving it 5 stars is because like in the beginning, the first like 5 to 10%, maybe even up to 13%, I remember at the airport I was reading. I don't know if it was because I was just tired, but I just wasn't that interested. Some books you start reading them and you're immediately captivated. That didn't happen to me with this book. After that like 13% mark for me, it really picked up and I really enjoyed this. I really like Catherine Center's writing, and like I said, now I do want to read some of her other books to see like how her writing style is in other books and if I enjoy them just as much. If you have not read this, please read this. I honestly feel like I waited way too long to read this, and I remember I bought the 7-Year Slip and this book together because I had a gift card, and I went and I picked those 2 books up, and I remember this because they were both yellow books, but like the 7-Year Slip was so hyped up in that moment that I read that book before, or like way before. I read that like in November or December. I ended up loving this book a lot more, so I probably should have started with this one. And nonetheless, I'm so happy I got to it. Now I really want to read Hello Stranger, which is the blue cover, and it's also by Catherine Center, and see what the vibes are with that one. The next booktuber I'm choosing for this little challenge is Ashlyn Cayley. I literally love her. She is so sweet. I love how her voice is so like sweet and cute, and like she's just so gentle, and I feel like she's just so nice too. Like she doesn't even want to like say anything negative about books. I don't know, she's just so cute, and I love her and her husband's channel. Her husband also has a booktube channel. I first saw this book on her channel, and then I saw it in Haley's channel and then Destiny's. I originally saw it in Ashlyn's channel, and she really loved this book, and I had never heard about it. So I feel like I typically go for books that I hear a lot about or that become very popular and very hyped up. So I thought this was like the perfect chance to kind of go out of my comfort zone or read something that I haven't heard too many people talking about. So I chose Lovely War. I actually went to Barnes & Noble and picked this up, and I took forever looking for this because I thought this was like historical fiction or fiction, and it was actually in the YA section. So this is a YA book, and it's called Lovely War by Julie Berry. I don't know too much about it. All I really remember Ashlyn saying is that it has to do with like World War maybe 1 and 2, and it has something to do with like gods too, like so kind of Greek mythology, but it's not too complicated apparently. And it has to do with like two sisters and maybe their life in that time frame. I'm not really 100% sure, but I really like the aesthetic of this book. It just looks so elegant. It's just really nice. The first page, which has the blurbs, is like nice and pink, like mauve. And then it does have the first part in black, which I really like this. I'll read the synopsis because honestly, I really don't understand what this book is about. It says, in the perilous days of World Wars I and II, the gods held the fates and the hearts of four mortals in their hands. Hazel, James, Aubrey, and Colette. A classical pianist from London, a British would-be architect turned soldier, a Harlem-born ragtime genius in the US Army, and a Belgian orphan with a gorgeous voice and a devastating past. Their story, as told by goddess Aphrodite, who must spin the tale or face judgment on Mount Olympus, is filled with hope and heartbreak, prejudice and passion, and reveals that, though war is a formidable force, it's no match for the transcendent power of love. I probably won't understand that synopsis until I get through the book. It's a very different concept than anything I've ever read, so I'm curious as to how I'm gonna feel about this book or how I'm gonna like it. I'm hearing that it does have beautiful writing and they're like very impacted by it and they even cried. Ashlyn really raved about this book and said she really loved this, so I'm really excited to get to this. This is pretty big. Like, this is bigger than a regular paperback. If you compare it to why do I want to keep saying Body Center? Bodyguard. It's bigger and it's also pretty thick. It's like 500 pages. So let's see how it is. The writing isn't too big, but it's also not too small. So we're gonna go ahead and get started and I'll keep you guys updated. So I'm actually downloading the Lovely War by Julie Berry on my Kobo because I feel like that book is like big and heavy and uncomfortable in my hands, and I feel like if I just read it on my Kobo, I'm gonna get through it a lot quicker. I don't have much to say yet. I'm only on like page 65. I am understanding the synopsis a little better now, which I mentioned earlier, like a few days ago when I read the synopsis, that I probably wasn't gonna understand it until I started reading. But what I'm getting right now from the book so far is like the gods and the goddess, they like overlook these mortals, these specific four mortals, and like their life. So like Aphrodite, she's like the goddess of love and all of that, so she basically is like the one that kind of helps mortals fall in love or like flirt and go through all that. And then there's Ares, I think it's pronounced, and he's like the god of war and like anger and all of that. So like he's the one involved in like the World War I situation and other situations of that nature. Apollo's there, they mention Athena. That's kind of what I'm getting at. I love how this book has really short chapters, like I'm saying 2-3 pages. It makes you kind of go through it a lot quicker. I'm gonna go ahead and continue it and I will keep you guys updated. I feel like this is a book that is like very different than anything I've ever read before, which is pretty intriguing and like compelling. And I do really like Julie Berry's writing. It is absolutely beautiful. Her writing is amazing. Honestly, it's like so poetic and just, it gives you like romantic fuzzy vibes, like just refreshing. And I am annotating the book as well, so I'll probably just annotate on my Kobo and then go back and fully annotate the book, and I'll probably show that maybe in my bookish vlog that comes out this month as well. Be on the lookout for that. That'll probably be out after this. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it'll be up before. We'll see. That's just a little update, and let's see. So far I am really liking this book a lot. update. I am 40% into Lovely War. I know I mentioned earlier that I really enjoy the writing. It's very lyrical and beautiful, and it's like romantic. Poetic is the word. I am really enjoying that aspect of it, and as I mentioned, we are following, I believe it's 4, like the main mortals. It's 4 of them. There are obviously other characters involved. I do prefer Hazel's story with James right now, so they all interconnect. And I forgot to mention, basically the gods are like in court right now or something. They're like kind of going through some trial because Aphrodite was cheating on her, I don't even know how to pronounce his name, I'll put the god's name here, with Ares. And I really like the Hazel story, and now it's interconnecting with like this other character, Colette, I believe it's pronounced, and Aubrey. There is a lot of prejudice going on as well. Obviously this is in like the early 1900s, so there's a lot of like historical fiction aspects of this book, and I think that's like my least favorite part because it just gives a little bit, I mean, this is just negative connotation, which is really my problem, but it kind of just reminds me of school, like the mention of world wars, just like military talk and sergeants talking to their soldiers and all of that. Like, I don't really like things surrounding that too much, so I'm not loving that aspect of it. But again, obviously I went into the book knowing that it had to do with those times, and I knew there was like a historical fiction aspect to it. But I do have to say that I feel like there's times in the book where it gets really confusing, where you kind of don't know what's going on and then it connects later on, which I don't always love that in books because I feel like my brain kind of just dozes off when I'm kind of confused about what's going on. But like I said, eventually it all, like all of their stories interconnect and they all start making sense slowly. I think at like the 30% mark it did pick up for me, where I kind of started understanding a little bit better. My Kobo says I have 5 hours to go. This book is pretty long. Hey guys, I am in a new setting. As you can see, I am in Denver and I'm so excited because it's my first time in Colorado. I came alone. It is my first solo trip, so I'm just super excited to be here. But this is just a update for Lovely War. I did get to Colorado this morning. It's now 5 o'clock. I landed at like almost 10 o'clock, and I did get to read quite a bit on the airplane. I was like 66% in when I got on the plane, and now I'm 83% in. So I did read quite a bit, and I don't even remember when the last time I updated you was. I feel like my opinions on this book have changed a few times already, maybe 15% or 20% ago. I do feel like there were little moments where I was feeling kind of bored, and I don't think it's like the writing style or anything like that. I think I'm just not like the biggest fan of historical fiction, and this does have a lot of historical fiction elements because it is a World War I setting time frame. I think the Greek mythology aspect of it really makes it a lot more compelling and intriguing and interesting. Now that we kind of have read a little bit more, I feel like I started connecting more with the characters. I'm particularly more connected with Hazel and James's story versus Aubrey and Colette's story. I feel like in this story, Hazel is just like the main character. At least in my head she is. I don't know, I feel like the way Aphrodite and like all of the other gods speak about their story, it just feels, it makes you feel like closer to them in general. I think that also with Colette and Aubrey's story, there's a lot of like, I think it focuses a lot on Colette's like fears and traumas and hurt and pain and sorrow. And then with Hazel, it's more like she's a little more optimistic, like her nature. And I like to think that I do have a side that's like anxious and like I overthink things. I do feel like overall I am an optimistic person at the end of the day, and I feel like Hazel is the type that like no matter what, she's just like pushing forward and like just trying to look at the brighter side of things, and that's why I like her more. I feel like Colette really like nags a lot, and like she's in all of her right to because of the things that she's gone through. Like, I'm not criticizing that at all. It's just like I connect more with Hazel. I feel like she just really tries her best to kind of keep the momentum going, and just, I don't know, like she just hopes for the best, basically. A lot has happened. I don't want to say much because it'll just spoil the story, but it definitely does get very deep, like very, very deep. Definitely check the trigger warnings because it does get pretty serious. But yeah, I did start connecting with the characters more. I feel like, I don't know if it's because I was on the airplane and I had like no distractions, but I just felt like I was starting to enjoy the book a lot more. Now I kind of understand like the Greek mythology meets historical fiction aspect, which in the beginning it did get kind of confusing. Like I feel like I was trying to explain it to you guys, but I just didn't have a good grasp on it yet. But I am planning on finishing this sometime during this trip. I'm only here for 3 days, so I am gonna finish this maybe tonight or tomorrow night. I am going to a baseball game here shortly, so I don't know at what time I'm gonna get back home. But yeah, that's just a little update. I definitely understand how this could be somebody's 5-star read or like somebody's favorite book. Just depends the style of writing you like, and if you can really relate to the depth and the emotions of these characters, and I think that you'll really love this book. I just think that I don't love reading about too much trauma and too much like hurt and pain, so I think that's just like my preference. I am liking the story. I do think it's a very beautiful, very unique story. Like I would have never thought of mixing those two worlds together or those two genres. I will be back later. Alright guys, I am back in Florida. I've already been back in Florida for a few days now, and I did finish Lovely War by Julie Berry. I don't have it here with me. I'm too lazy to go grab it. I did finish it and I did want to give you my thoughts. I know I mentioned as I was reading it that I really enjoy Julie Berry's writing. I feel like the story itself, like the storyline, the plot, it was very unique. I don't think I've ever read anything like it, and I feel like because of that, it already had like a high rating in my head. I don't know. You gotta give credit where it's due. It's one of those books where like in the beginning it was kind of confusing for me. Like maybe I'm a little slow, but it was kind of confusing for me at first. It takes a little bit to kind of acclimate yourself into the story and then kind of fully understand the big picture. And like at the end it all comes together. But I did also mention that I did have, my hair is just all over the place, but I did mention that I did have a preference in characters as well. Like I definitely preferred Hazel and James' story over Aubrey's and Colette's. I do feel like it kind of stressed me out that, and that was the point of the story, like it's like a heart-wrenching, heartbreaking story. A lot of traumatic things happen and it is based in World War I, so it's a given. But like that just stressed me out, and I feel like it's because I'm used to my fantasy and like little rom-com books. Like to go into something that serious is just a lot for me. I also just feel like historical fiction is just really not my vibe. I think that it does give a little bit of textbook for me, but like I said, I do feel like I should give credit where it's due. I still rated it 4 stars because like I said, the writing off the bat I absolutely loved. Like I was annotating right away because her lyrics, her writing is very lyrical, very beautiful, very poetic, and I really did enjoy that aspect of the story. I feel like there are things that just, since it was based in like World War I, there were things that happened that kind of made me like just deaths and a lot of tragedy that really just was stressing me out. If you don't mind that, then that's fine. It was just stressful. Nonetheless, it was still a great read, and I understand why it's kind of getting more hyped up now because it is a good book. Just go into it knowing that there are trigger warnings for sure, that it's not a happy-go-lucky book. It is very like serious. It talks about things that actually did happen, like with made-up characters and whatnot. Just very traumatic events that can be triggering. The love story between the characters is very genuine and wholesome. Now we're gonna move on to the next book, which I chose Alexa Ray for the next booktuber, and I was looking through her Goodreads and I saw that she rated Binding 13 5 stars, and this has been in my TBR for the longest, so I thought this is the perfect opportunity to see what the hype is with the Boys of Tommen series. And I do have it on Kindle Unlimited as well, so I started this last night and I'm only on chapter 2. I do like the writing right away, which I already knew that because when I picked it up at Barnes & Noble and I read like the first page, I was like, okay, I can do this. I can get into this book. We're gonna go ahead and see what the hype is finally. I did get to chapter 6 of Binding 13 last night. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it's progress considering I sat down and I read like 7% in one sitting. I feel like lately my attention span has just not been great, and I mentioned this earlier on in this video. The last few months have been not the best for me in terms of reading. I just have a lot going on and I'm like trying to focus on so many things at the same time. But anyway, that's besides the point. I did want to update you guys. Also, this book is super thick and long. Like, it's a big paperback. It's not like a regular size paperback, so it's much longer than it looks. And for example, yesterday when I was on chapter 5 on the Kindle, it said I had like 45 minutes left in that chapter, and I was like, it was so discouraging. I had to like hide that detail off of the Kindle so that I would just focus on reading. But I did want to comment on the main characters. So Johnny Cavanagh, I think it's pronounced. He hits Shannon, which is the female main character. He hits Shannon in the face with a ball, and she just moved to this new school because she got so severely bullied in her last school, which was a public school. And then she is like nervous and tries to run through the field, and Johnny accidentally hits her with a ball, and then he feels so terrible. And also he just obviously is not in the position to get in trouble because he's like the team captain and whatever. He's like perfect sports high schooler, you know, gets handed everything because he's a great athlete. He takes her to, I guess, the nurse, and then this is when he starts liking this girl Shannon. He's like, wow, like he's like, wow, she has like the most beautiful blue eyes I've ever seen. And like he keeps saying like flirty things on accident because he just can't help himself. And he's like, dude, what the heck is going on? He finds out her age, and she is like 2 or 3 years younger than him. 2 years younger than him. So he's like, oh my god, like she's too young, blah blah blah. This is where things start, I guess the romance starts unraveling. He's kind of getting like a little, not a weird obsession, but he's like so hooked on the fact that he felt something for her, and he's like intrigued by her basically. And he tells all the other people on his team that she's like off limits and whatnot. That's how far I'm in, and I feel like I really love Chloe Walsh's style of writing. I understand the hype already just being 6 chapters in, because I feel like once you're reading this book you kind of get sucked into this world, and like I was actually enjoying it. Like I didn't want to put the Kindle down, and such a long book though that I'm like curious as to what's going to happen in this extremely long book. This is 600 pages long, 68 chapters long, and I'm only on chapter 6. That's just a little update, and I will be back with more shortly. Alright guys, I'm gonna do my makeup, and while I do my makeup we're gonna have a little reading update chat also. Let me put some earrings on because I feel so bare when I don't have earrings on, and I wish I didn't have like that codependency to them, but I simply do. I'm gonna put these silver ones on just for now. Why not? I have been filming this specific video for a month, or even a little bit over a month, and I just feel like I haven't been making reading a certain number of books a priority anymore. In March, I've mentioned this before, but in March I had 1 week off of work, and I went ham on books because I filmed the switching my screen time for reading, and I feel like that really helped me get through a larger number of books. And I love watching booktubers say they have read like 50 books. Okay, what am I saying? I love watching booktubers talk about how they've read 10 books, 12 books, I mean even like 6 or 7 books in a month. And lately I've been reading like 2 books a month, and I had a whole month and a week off of work, but I was kind of like in a reading slump. I feel like I was just a little restless in the sense that I preferred to like go to the beach or like go to the gym. I did go to North Carolina, and I did go to Colorado during this, like the filming of the Powerless reading vlog, which was up before this video. So like when I was reading the Bodyguard, I did do a short make a short trip to North Carolina, see my cousins, and then when I was reading Lovely War, as you would have seen in the earlier clips at the hotel room. Yeah, I went to Colorado. So I just feel like maybe the right word is not restless. Like, I'm just living. Like, it is summer and I'm trying to like live life a little bit, because I do feel like sometimes I get really caught up with like the routine side of things, like going to the gym, and I'm trying to go back to school. So I've been working on a cert for the longest, and I feel like my time management just hasn't been the best either. I wanted to be waking up early during that month and a half that I was off of work. It was like a month and a week, and I was waking up late. And another side of me is like, I deserve, or I don't even have to justify it, like I need rest. Like, I'm human and need sleep. So I don't know, I feel like I'm at a constant battle back and forth, and like I want to make YouTube more of a priority as well. Like, I want to post more. I get so excited when I see other booktubers posting booktube videos and wrap-ups and all of that, and I feel like lately I've just been kind of falling behind, for lack of better terms. I just haven't been pushing as consistently as I was at some point with my reading. Some days I don't even read, and I feel like I have these bursts of energy. I don't know if that's the word, burst, but I have like these little, yeah, bursts of energy sometimes where like I want to make YouTube a priority, and I'll be reading so quickly, and like at the very least I'll read a book a week, which is not bad for me because I do work a 9 to 5, but lately it's taking me weeks to finish a book, and I'm just distracted with so much, I feel like, and it's just a lot. But anyway, right now I am reading Binding 13, and I feel like that book, I'm really enjoying it, but also it's a long one, so I'm like, dang, is this gonna take me 3 months to finish? Like, that's obviously me exaggerating, but I feel like when I say like, okay, let me sit down and read, I just get so easily distracted as well. And I'm starting to think I'm just gonna have to take like a week off of the gym and film another switching my screen time for reading to kind of get back in the swing of things, because I don't know what it is. Like, last night, this past weekend, I did read a little bit right before going to sleep, and I'm like 15% in right now. Again, it is a longer book and I do like it, but I don't know, I just get distracted so easily. And like, mind you, I delete my TikTok app like every other day, because once I find myself endlessly scrolling for hours, or like even 1 hour, I just feel like crap, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I'm wasting time right now, like valuable time. But yeah, that was just a little venting session on kind of how, and an update kind of on how I've been feeling with like my reading. Like, sometimes I ask myself like, am I falling off of the reading bandwagon already? Because like, why? But then I pick up a book, and when I start enjoying it, I'm like, no, surely it's just that, you know, I just have a lot going on. And like, that's okay also. Like, I feel like with social media, we tend to romanticize things, but also we kind of like bring in the hustle culture into every little hobby and every little thing that you're just meant to enjoy, and it kind of ruins it for people. And then that's why hobbies like completely fall off. Like, at some point the fitness industry was like booming, and then now it's like more about health and wellness, because people realize like they were just crashing themselves to the ground. And I'm like, is that what's gonna happen with reading? Like, I hope not, because reading is like something I really enjoyed when I was younger, and I still enjoy, and a lot of people do enjoy. It's just like sometimes everything becomes like a competition. You're reading enough, and then obviously like I'm putting that pressure on myself, but it's just like a collective thing going on. I feel like I love this blush, but this is old. I don't even want to say. I got this from my mom's makeup bag so long ago. This is Elizabeth Arden. I don't even know if people really know what this is. But yeah, that was just a little debrief. I feel like I really enjoy when people just yap while they're doing their makeup. So I thought, wait, I didn't even do concealer on the lids. So I thought, why not just do that? I am due for a new NARS creamy concealer here shortly. But yeah, going back to Binding 13, I feel like I do understand the hype. This style of writing is what keeps me hooked. I think it's nothing like out of this world, but I don't know, their interactions, you know, amongst the characters stays pretty entertaining in my opinion. And it's funny because it's based in Ireland, and like they're Irish, and they spell things differently, and I don't know if they truly spell them that way, or it's just spelled that way so that we can kind of say it in like the Irish accent. I mean, if anyone is Irish and watching this, correct me, but like, for example, like it instead of S-H-I-T, they have an E at the end, and I'm like, is that how they pronounce it? Or like, is that how they genuinely spell it? I'm ignorant to this. So yeah, it's just little things that I find a little like funny, but not funny, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's kind of cool because I have read, like, for example, Magnolia Parks. It is based in London, and they do say oi or a or whatever the heck it is. And I don't think I've ever read a book that's like based in Ireland with Irish characters. So that's kind of cool. I definitely need a brow gel. Okay, the worst thing ever is when I use my powder, like my setting powder, and it goes in my contact and then I can't see. That's like the absolute worst. The absolute worst. I'm gonna use this little NARS under eye, or I don't even know what this is called, but like for your, like, it really opens up the eyes a little. And mascara, and then I'm pretty much done. All right, there we go. Update, because I haven't updated you all in almost 2 weeks now, or like a week and a half. I wanted to say I finally made a dent. I got to page 200. That does not seem like a dent with this book because it's really not, actually. I'm like 34% in, my Kindle says, but it's progress nonetheless. You all know I have been reading pretty slowly lately, and today, I don't know if you can tell, I've been sick for the last week. You can tell by my voice. So I've been struggling to read because my congestion has just given me the worst headache ever, and so it's been hard for me to like stare at my Kindle or stare at these tiny freaking words because the words are pretty small in this book. I feel like now I understand. I think in the previous clips I was like, how am I gonna read like 600 plus pages of a romance book? But it does have a lot of character development, and that's why I believe it's so long. Like, we're learning so much about Johnny's trajectory with rugby and like his injuries, and a little bit of background of his parents, and now we're learning like quite a bit of Shannon's trauma, why she is the way she is, basically. I feel like it took kind of a while to get there. Like I said, like 30% in now is when kind of going a little bit more in depth on the family aspect, their family. I feel like this is a book that is just like very, very detailed, and again, it's a lot of character development, so it's long. This has no correlation to Magnolia Parks whatsoever, but it did remind me of the last Magnolia Parks book, which I feel like was very detailed. There was a lot of character development. Not to say there isn't conflict in this book, because there's definitely a lot of conflicts. I don't know, I think it's like it doesn't have like a specific plot. It's just very much about these two characters and their lives, their interaction, how they're getting together, how they're getting to know each other, like each other, etc. This is definitely a lot different than what I thought it was gonna be like. I thought it was gonna be just like a really heavy romance book, but again, it's just like a lot of their life, very character development heavy. How many times am I gonna say that word? Those words. Now that I read the back, it says he wants to save her, she wants to hide, she's damaged, he's determined, fate brought them together, love binds them. So now I understand binding 13 because he plays rugby and 13 is his number. I really like her writing. It doesn't bore me at all. I think the fact that I know that it's such a long book, when I put that into perspective, I kind of get a little discouraged and I'll like put my Kindle down. But I did up the font a little, and I feel like now that the font's a little bigger, I feel like I'm turning the pages quicker, and it kind of motivates me a little more. I'm 34% in, which is like chapter 18 or something like that. What chapter is this? This is chapter 19. There's progress being made. I think, like, I don't want to jump ahead, but right now it's not giving me a 5-star feel. I think that if it does end up being a 5-star read, it'll probably be one of those books that, like, in hindsight, when you look back, you're like, wow, that was an amazing read. I love their story. But so far, for me, it's sitting at like a 4 stars. Like I said, I really do like the writing. I do like the characters. It is entertaining, but I just think I don't know enough, and not enough of their romance, or none of their romance has developed for me to even have that many thoughts, I guess. We're gonna continue reading, see how this goes. I'm finally feeling a little bit better, so hopefully that motivates me to get through this book. decorated my Kindle yesterday. I finally made it to the 50% mark of binding 13. So finally we have a big chunk read. I feel like I'm taking for freaking ever, and I keep saying that, but this book is so long and it feels like I keep going through the pages. I still have forever left. Please check the trigger warnings before you go into this book, because Shannon has a really traumatic life. I had already understood that aspect of this book, but the further you get into it, the more intense it gets. There are quite a few trigger warnings that I didn't really expect in this book. Like, I knew it was a little chaotic, but I didn't think it was this intense in terms of the trauma. Like, it doesn't go into too much detail quite yet. I don't know if it does later on, but it definitely mentions some heavy topics. And then earlier I mentioned that this doesn't really correlate too much with Magnolia Parks other than the character development aspect, but now I beg to differ, because Johnny and his friends really give me that strong found family trope that I feel with Magnolia Parks and that whole group. So that definitely was something that I feel like reminded me a little bit of Magnolia Parks. Gypsy, which is Johnny's like best friend and teammate, there's like this scene where he basically fights for him, and I'm like, yeah, this is Magnolia Parks vibes for sure. I am really enjoying this now. I feel like now I'm connecting to the characters more, because I feel like in the beginning I just wasn't connecting as much as I would have liked to, and maybe that's why like I was enjoying the writing but I wasn't as into it as I wanted to be. Not like now I feel emotionally invested. Like, I want to know what happens. I need to know what happens with Johnny and Shannon. And like, Johnny just met Joey, which is Shannon's brother, like Shannon's older brother that is super overprotective with her. He's saying some crazy thoughts he has about Shannon. He's not saying them, he's just having these thoughts while he's with the brother. This man is obsessed with Shannon, and I freaking love that. So hopefully this next 50% is going to be way quicker and easier to read, since now I'm so emotionally invested. And let's see what happens. A moment of silence. This book has altered my brain cells in the best way possible. I cannot believe that I've waited so long to jump on the hype, because I finished this book yesterday on the treadmill at the gym. I was just reading on my phone, like on the Kindle app, and I was flying through the book, like flying. I read it all throughout yesterday, like my working shift. I was just on my Kindle, just flipping the page, I mean not flipping the pages, but going through the pages and just eating it up. This book, I have no words. I feel like I'm going around in circles, because I have no words. Literally, okay, let's start with the fact that the reason why I am so obsessed with this book is because I am completely and utterly attached to these characters. Like, so emotionally attached to these characters. I felt the most profound, deep feelings that I think I've ever felt in a book before, and that's saying a lot. I feel like the closest thing I can compare this to in terms of how I felt and the emotions that I felt was like when I read Magnolia Parks, the Magnolia Parks series. The last like 2 or 3 chapters, I think it was like the last 2 chapters, ended on the craziest cliffhanger, and I literally had to stop reading multiple times and just like look away from my phone, because I felt like crying and I was in the middle of the freaking gym. I was perplexed. I was just like, the emotions I felt like I was living through these characters. Like, I felt all of the emotions that one would feel if that were to happen in real life. So I mentioned earlier on that Shannon has like a very traumatic life. She has a very abusive father, and her mom is like very passive. The only other person that has ever protected her is Joey, her older brother. They all just live in a chaotic household. She also has, I think it's 3 younger siblings, and no matter what, like, they don't tell on their father, because they did before and they were put into this home and like terrible things happened to one of her younger brothers. So she kind of just takes the abuse, and of course she meets Jonathan, or Johnny Cavanagh. He's the rugby player that's the captain. They're like, everybody loves him, everybody's obsessed with him. He's like obsessed with rugby, and like his rugby career is like the most important thing to him, but once he meets Shannon, he's like obsessed with her, and he's trying his best to not let that get in the way of his rugby career. And in the story, the whole time he's just trying his hardest to like have self-control and not let himself fall for Shannon, but the more he tries, the more he falls for her. They kind of have like this push and pull dynamic, trying to like pull away from the situation, and they're trying to protect themselves. Obviously Shannon, because she's been abused all her life and she has been bullied, and she just protects herself as one would in her situation. And of course he just protects himself in the sense that he protects his rugby career. I I said it before that I didn't think I was gonna rate this 5 stars unless after I read it I would have been like, okay, I'm attached to the characters, etc, etc. Yes, I rated it 5 stars. I would rate this 6 stars if I could, because I'm so attached to the characters, and for sure I feel like it didn't pick up until like 50% in. Not that the first 50% was bad, it was still good. I still liked the writing. I enjoyed the book thoroughly and the entirety of it, but I didn't get emotionally invested until 50%, because obviously by then you have like their character build up, their character development, you understand their family dynamics, their dynamic, Shannon and Johnny's, their friends, the found family dynamic that they have with the rugby players, all of it. All I have to say is, if you haven't read this, please read it, because it is so worth the hype. I'm immediately gonna go into the next book, which is Keeping 13. So stay on the lookout for that, because that'll be in the next coming reading vlog. I am so obsessed with this. This was Alexa Ray's pick. I see why she rated it 5 stars, because it is well deserved. Seriously, I think this is one of my favorite books right now, like favorite romance books ever. So really just wow. But please also be aware that the trigger warnings are definitely there. It's definitely very triggering. Like I said, I was literally about to cry. I was stressed out at the gym when I was reading this on the treadmill. Like I was legitimately like stressed out. Like I felt pain in my chest and I was upset. So please check the trigger warnings. But amazing, amazing, amazing. 100% recommend. That pretty much wraps up today's reading vlog. Extremely long reading vlog. It took me a little bit over a month to get through all of these books, but so worth it. I read Bodyguard, which was Haley Pham's 5-star read, and I ended up rating this 4.5. Such a cute romance, and it definitely had deeper topics and was like a serious story, but it was still like rom-com-y. I definitely recommend, and I definitely understand why so many people love this book. It is definitely worth the hype, and I'm so excited to get into more of Catherine Center's books. Then I read Lovely War, which I don't have the book with me right now, but I read it on my Kobo, and that was Ashlyn Kaylee's 5-star read, and I ended up rating that 4 stars. Super unique story, completely different than anything I've ever read. It is a YA book, but it is like historical fiction and Greek mythology. Those are genres that are thrown in there as well. I would say it's mostly Greek mythology meets historical fiction, but it is a YA book. Again, deeper topics. Definitely check the trigger warnings. Beautifully written. Literally, Julie Berry's writing is phenomenal and amazing and beautiful, and if I were to write a book, I would want to write that beautifully for sure. And then last but certainly not least, Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. A literal 6-star read for me. Really a 5-star read, but actually a 6-star read for me. Worth all of the hype, the emotions, the dynamic, the love story between Shannon and Johnny, just all of their entire life. It's so beautiful and like real and raw, and it's just everything. So this was such a successful, I'm like showing this and it doesn't even show the book, but it's Lovely War. This was such a successful reading vlog. I'm so happy with all of the books that I chose. Thank you so much for watching. See you in my next one.